Democracy is dead in the Labour Party. The Starmer leadership is not interested in democracy, it's interested in power and control. In order to maintain that control, it has to get rid of its activists. Democracy, principle, everything goes out of the window. The only thing they want is control. They are ruthless. It reveals Starmer as dishonest because he promised unity.
We've got to unite our party or we won't win.
Knowing that he would get rid of the left the moment he was in there. And also personal treachery. He stood alongside Jeremy Corbyn, knowing he was going to put a dagger between his shoulder blades. That's treachery. Treachery and dishonesty. What kind of qualities are those in the leader? Gordon Brown was described as Stalin who became Mr. Bean. I think Starmer's gone the other way. His kind of lack of presence. He is like a Mr. Bean, but now he has become Stalin. The only thing he's good at, the only lesson he's learned is from the Stalinist tendency to control the machine, disregard everything, principles, rules, law, natural justice, truth. Disregard all those and get control of the machine, then kick your enemies out. I mean, it's like when Trotsky was removed from the photographs. Jeremy is excised from Labour politics, and the media collude in this. They know it's a stitch-up, but it is not brought out in the press because the press wants that outcome. And that's something else that doesn't appear in the press at all. How many thousands have left the Labour Party? It must now be approaching 150,000, I would think. Imagine that had happened under Jeremy Corbyn. Where's their fake outrage that they wheel out, whenever the left appears, sort of evaporates when the right wing is doing something? Why is that? Well, we know why. Because they want them out. They want the left driven out. When Jeremy and John won the leadership, I think there was a general underestimation of the ruthlessness of the right wing. We were playing cricket and they were doing all-in wrestling. When you look back, it's so obvious this is what they would do. They represent the interests of the ruling class. And in fact, they are now the biggest obstacle to change. They are a bigger obstacle than the Tory party. And the idea of a broad church, of course, is nonsense. It's a broad church within very narrow limits. You will agree with us. Otherwise, you're out. I think there's a whole soft left element in the Labour Party that just wishes that life were different and won't recognise the class war. They are in a class war within the Labour Party. When Jeremy Corbyn became leader and John McDonnell with him, it was a mistake that they were allowed to become the leadership. And they put forward a programme that would make a serious beginning to transforming British society in the interests of working class people. And the establishment decided this is not acceptable. We need a safe Labour Party that will be there when we need a change of government. We cannot accept a change in class interest. And there's no conspiracy. People understand the rules. They understand the steps of the dance. They don't need to ring each other up and say, BBC, will you do this? Or Guardian, will you run that? They understand the dance. So the campaign to unseat Jeremy Corbyn was begun by the Guardian. The Guardian blew the whistle so that all the right-wing press could say, well, if the Guardian says he's got to go, we've got a free ride. And the viciousness of the campaign against, particularly personally against Jeremy Corbyn, was the most vile as I can remember, even after Scargill wasn't called a racist. Everyone knows that is a lie about Jeremy, but they colluded in the lie. Eventually that penetrated to the people. And of course we know when we nearly won the 2017 election, there were people in Labour HQ actively working against a Labour victory.
You've also said each day I try and think of ways to undermine Jeremy Corbyn.
I did say that, yes.
Well, that was a mistake, wasn't it? If he'd had your backing, he might have done a lot better.
Well, he might have done.
It is now becoming even more urgent for them to avoid a Labour Party that would make real change, because clearly Johnson will have outlived his usefulness for the ruling class quite soon, because he's clearly not up to the job. And there is always a time after a decade or so, people feel the need for a change. We're a democracy, aren't we? We can change. Yeah, you can change provided both parties do the same. So there will be a need for a new face. So it's essential to protect the class interests of those in power that the Labour Party does not challenge that class ascendancy. And Jeremy and John would have done that. That's why the attack happened, and it's why it will intensify until Starmer or whoever replaces him, because they see Starmer as such a liability, takes over. Starmer wants a party that is smaller, that has no activists to show to the right wing they won't change anything, and the assets of the ruling class are safe with them. Starmer wants to lead a party so that Murdoch can put his arm around Starmer and say, you're one of us. You can vote Labour now and deliver the working class hand and bound to Murdoch and his pals, the establishment, the BBC, the Guardian and the rest. I received a letter, like many, probably thousands of people have, from the Labour Party saying that they had prescribed certain organisations that were there to support people who'd been unjustly expelled or suspended. Of course, I support those organisations. There is a witch hunt against the left, and the party leadership made the prescription act retrospectively. I mean, that's not normal, I understand, in the law that you make this misdemeanour is now a crime and you're guilty if you ever did it in the past. Laws don't act retrospectively in that way. However, Starmer has no regard for due process, he has no regard for natural justice. He's simply concerned with expelling the left. So I decided to take no part in this charade, and I didn't give them the satisfaction of a reply. You have to treat these attacks as a badge of honour. If they come for you, it shows they rate you. We have nothing to worry about. They're the ones who should be in the dock. So I'd say to anyone, you know, and particularly the comrades in Young Labour, wear it as a badge of honour. They're bastards. Don't give them the time of day. If I were Jeremy, I would say, I'm not coming back. I'm going to hold you to account from the back benches. You're going to see what leadership really is. You are no Labour Party leader. There will be no party of the people under your leadership. I'd hammer him. I wouldn't want to get back in. I'd hammer him as an independent. I think those who are in the party have got to fight every inch, but do it in the knowledge that the media probably won't report you. I mean, the Jewish members, who are now 4 or 5 times more likely to be expelled than non-Jewish members for taints of anti-Semitism. Jewish members. So bizarre, you know, you couldn't make it up. Doesn't get a mention. To the right wing of the Labour Party, I have nothing to say. You know what you've done and why you're doing it. You know your own dishonesty. I'm glad I don't live with your conscience. To the good members of the Labour Party, I just say look at the facts, really. Peaceful coexistence doesn't work. The broad church doesn't work. You've seen the dishonesty. You've seen the treachery. Show your disgust at what you've seen. The hope lies in people's determination to fight back. But that determination will only last so long. The mass movement that Jeremy and John built, that was a cause of hope. Now his destruction by Starmer and co and by the media and the right-wing Labour Party, his destruction is killing that hope. So we've got to act fast. I say it's a critical moment. There's not only those people who have left the Labour Party or been driven out, there's people from the Green movement, young people absolutely overwhelmed by the prospect of the destruction of the planet, quite rightly. The whole anger of people in the neglected regions is still there. And it turns to apathy, it turns to cynicism, it turns to alienation, and a belief that politics has nothing to offer. We know from history, if the left doesn't articulate for these people their issues, the right wing will. This is a political vacuum. This is the biggest challenge to the left in my lifetime. That's a long time. So who's going to answer it? I think we need a number of things. I mean, not a new political party would be suicide at the moment, but we do need a political movement across the whole left, inside the Labour Party and outside. It's got to be ready to become a party when the time is right. The unions are key. They have financial clout, they have political clout. Serious trade unions who say, right, these are the interests of our members, we're going to develop a whole left movement. Otherwise we fragment. Don't believe in great heroes, but we need a collective leadership that people will recognise and identify with and would unify the left the way Jeremy did when he led the Labour Party. The Socialist campaign MPs have either got to face the choice. They either present us with a credible political path to reclaim the Labour Party. Can they do it? I haven't heard them. If you can't, then how do you represent the independent interests of the working class? If you have no answer, you've either got to get out or you've got to find another solution, because otherwise people are leaving. They will fragment, and this critical moment when you have this mass of people just been driven out of the party, where are they going to go? If we miss this opportunity, I think it's a very black outlook. The mass media are our enemy. They've declared war. and we know whose interests they represent. Whatever news outlets we have, like Double Down News, is important to us. So Double Down News on Patreon, Patreon, God knows what it means. If you can support it on that, you're a better man than me.